3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm back from holiday. You will also instantly notice my voice is gone. It went while I was on holiday, but it's almost back now, which is pretty good. And I do have a nice British cup of tea at my disposal. So when I got back, we're obviously going to be jumping into the ranged and the healers for their final comparison before Legion goes live. So one thing I did notice after I did the melee comparison is people asking, Preacher, how did you end up with Rhett being there? Which is a solid question, because we work really hard not to be that channel where it's like, just trust me, right? I don't need to explain myself. I don't know, you know, she's making dodgy fucking clickbaity videos. Legion say wow and all that kind of nonsense. So you were quite right to justify it, because we have looked at the Rhett Paladin twice. Okay? We've looked at the Rhett Paladin twice, and the first time I absolutely hated it. You probably remembered that, as I was like, this is fucking terrible, I can't stand it, please go away. And then I kind of liked it in the one, not too long ago. Can we stun this guy? I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've been in here. The last time I was in the Vile Hold, is a short anecdote here. I can finally interrupt. Say, I should use my, I know. I should have used my racial. Wah, wah, wah. The last time I'm getting all confused because I'm in Vile Hold. The second time I looked at it, I thought it was decent. Not great, but better. Yeah, it was better. It was tolerable. And then, of course, it ended up being the worst choice for me out of all the Legion melee specs. So, can you explain that to us? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, in order for me to have actually come up with a conclusion that I thought it was the least fun. Now, I think that's an important thing that we need to remember here, because a lot of people forget that. The least fun is that people got confused as, was I talking about damage? Does it do weak source damage or anything like that? Don't worry about the gameplay right now. I'm trying to just make sure I get all the decent comments out. No, this is nothing to do with damage. Mechanically, everything here works. Mechanically, everything here works. And in fact, there'll be many people who listen to what I'm about to describe as to why I personally felt it was the least fun. And will actually take away a lot of, hey, actually, I think that's quite good. Which is fine. That's absolutely fine. It's a very subjective opinion, obviously. All I get to do is I get to spend hundreds of hours playing all the different melee specs and then able to put them side by side and say, this is what I found the most fun. This is what I didn't find the most fun, right? That's basically what it comes down to at the end of the day. So, there's a few things we have to discuss about the Rhett Paladin in order for me to justify what I said. Firstly, the buff system. This buff system is just so fucking awful. No surprise to anybody that has played it. It's just so tedious and annoying. Like this really old school idea of it being added back into the game that doesn't need to belong here. I was so surprised they bothered with this and well, similar types of buffs they put back in the game. You'll probably remember the discussion I had in the Legacy of the Warlock regarding DI. And seeing that this was then made a return was just baffling to me. But anyway, what Blizzard did with the Rhett Paladin is pretty simple. They removed a lot of the excess spells as they saw it. So your exorcisms, your Holy Wrath still exists as, in a talented form. They got rid of things like Baseline, Consecration, Execution Sentence, all these little fiddly things, Hammer of the Righteous, they got rid of it. But that's a lot of stuff to get rid of, right? That is a lot of stuff to get rid of. And what they were left with wasn't that appealing, obviously. So they then stuck in a situation where they had a Holy Power class that didn't really do a great deal of stuff. What are we going to do with it? So they added in the Holy Power Mini Colossus Smash charge system, which we've seen on a number of classes. This charge system is no exception. But what they've ended up doing overall is creating a spec, in my eyes, that is capable of a lot of things, but it's a master of none. It's borrowing from Legion in many ways. So let me give a couple of examples. One, it has the charge system, but it also has the managed resource system, and it also has the Colossus Smash system, all working together. Now, what happens there is it makes it really limited, because all of these things are constrained because of how their individual mechanics work. So in order for the Holy Power system to work, you had to have generators, in this case, Crusader Strike and the Blade of Justice. I have Blade of Wrath right now, it's a talent, which are designed to work with a 5 Holy Power system. So, because of that, they had to come up with this idea of, well, we need something that does 1 and something that does 2. And that functionally works. But is it interesting? No, it's not. It's not that interesting at all. If you notice, if I zoom right in, they're really hoping, like they're doing with many specs, to make the animations do the carry. So you can see this Crusader Strike animation is quite cool. You see that swirly effect? And the Blade of Justice is quite nice, but you actually didn't even see it there because it went through the character. So if you two, even though they've reduced the maximum zoom distance, even though the current zoom system is fine, if I go to like even here and attack things, even this close, you'll barely see these animations. Now compare them to like the Enhancement Shaman, the Demon Hunter, you compare them to the DK, they're not even in the same league, which means these generators are really uninteresting, but they have to work that way because of the Holy Power system. And I often wonder whether they designed the mechanics of it, which is we need a 2 and a 1 on a charge system so they can generate 5 reliably without wasting resources. Without thinking, well, what makes this spell really cool? And nothing makes these spells really cool. They do flat damage and generate holy power, right? That's all they do. They do nothing of interest whatsoever. They don't have much interaction beyond that. They're just one does 1 holy power in a recharge system and 1 you want to keep on cooldown because it does 2 holy power. So they then added in the judgment system on top of that. This is a boss, isn't it? Yeah. Oh yeah, Maleficent. I remember you. Let's pop the wings. Start crunching some skulls. So they then added in the Colossus Smash system to maybe try and make that more interesting. So you'll notice that when I judge things, okay, when I judge things, they take significantly more damage. Like, depending on your mastery, I'm on most of my playtime, I'm going to be absolutely honest with you guys here, nearly all of my playtime on the Ret Paladin has been on 110. I've just leveled this morning because our 110 character is currently locked because Battle.net's having some issues, blah, blah, blah. Usual nonsense with Battle.net. The Colossus Smash system, because it's tied to judgment and not something that like procs or resets, means it has to be really, really static or it doesn't work. I'm missing out on all my execution sentences here, but I'm trying to talk. I'll do a good boss later on, I promise. So it's really limited to this very short cooldown window of Colossus of the judgment, and then making sure that everything ties together with that. So what you have is this feeling when I play the Ret Paladin of always building towards something. I always feel like I'm building towards something, but nothing ever really happens because Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm, your 2 main finishers, aren't that exciting. There is some cool gameplay interaction with Execution Sense, which I'll talk about shortly. But other than that, you have a relatively boring generation phase of Crusader Strike and Blade of Justice, and a relatively boring sort of nuke phase, which is Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm. That's the core gameplay of the Ret Paladin right there. And if you don't like that, the talent system isn't going to alter that much whatsoever. So there are some people who've got to look at this and say, I'm perfectly fine with being able to do a very, very simple spec and it look quite flashy. It does look quite flashy. I just think all the specs look flashier, right? On top of those 2 systems, before we get into the minutiae, they also tried to implement both the idea of it being a two-hander and dealing really big numbers, but something else you'll have noticed throughout my other melee videos, which is a constant level of streaming damage, which looks impressive on the screen. Now, what does that mean? It means that all those little numbers have to be, well, the sources of those really small numbers have to be criminally insignificant, because the Ret Paladin's case of is doing big, chunky damage. If you get something like the perfect execution sentence, which lines up really nicely inside the judgment window, and you line them up really, really nicely with everything else, then it's huge, huge damage, like big, chunky, like Arms Warrior style numbers. The problem with that, of course, is if you have other sources of damage, like dot damage, they have to be really trivial. So what you'll notice is I'm doing like 200Ks here and stuff like that, and regularly you'll see 400Ks when we swap some talents later. Everything else sticks like 7K and stuff, and it looks really wrong because they're trying to do 2 things at once instead of making one thing really, really good. Like Arms is just like bang, 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 and that's what it's aiming for, right? But with the Ret Paladin, it's like bang, bang, but look, still we're filling your screen with this stuff because we want to obfuscate the fact that there ain't much going on here with the spec. What I want you to pay attention to is the buttons I'm pressing, right? Don't watch the screen and don't watch the damage, just watch the actual buttons I'm pressing here. Notice I'm not pressing much at all, and in fact a lot of the time I'm actually waiting to press stuff. This here, I'm just cycling it around, circle. It's not slow, definitely would not complain that this spec is slow by any means, but am I doing anything here that's like a really rewarding thing? No. And I'm not talking about moments of glory here. I know you guys are sick of me harping on that because you all have a different taste in that. What I'm talking about is just generally fun things to press, like a big meaty execute, or maybe it's dropping that huge double back-to-back storm strike, or where it's popping lots of armies, family of dead, and getting your pet going. All those kind of cool little things. don't exist ever for the Ret Paladin. They just never happen. And you constantly feel like it's about to happen, but it never does. So, we do have this Wake of Ashes. Now, this has been changed. Previously, it had the Ashbringer, like, falling from the sky. It was like, started here, and it fell down from the sky in this Wake, and then went kaboom! It wasn't overly impressive. It wasn't like a nuclear bomb or anything. But it was still cool nonetheless. But now they've changed it into this Bukkake Splurge, which again gets lost. So, in fact, to show you this, I'm going to have to move out a little bit. This is what it looks like. Phew! And it doesn't even have a good sound effect with it, honestly. Which is a shame, because the Ret Paladin is kind of known for being a very, very beautiful thing to watch in most cases, but at the moment, not so much. Not so much. It's definitely lost its sense of that. Really a lot of toned down on the graphics almost for the Ret Paladin, which again, it just adds to that kind of, other specs are just doing this way better. If you look around at what the other guys are doing here, so shockingly we are here with 3 Paladins, but still, you get the idea that other classes are just, you're going to be side by side with them. So a lot of people don't realize that when I do the melee comparison, what I'm saying is, I'm trying to say whether I could recommend this to be a main spec. Now, everyone has different things that they do in the game, right? Within like a couple of weeks, you're going to be all doing completely separate things while playing your Ret Paladin. But can I recommend a spec that has very little to no derivation or any alterations or any augments whatsoever from basically what you get at level 1 for a long-term playable spec? No, I can't do that. And again, now we're going to have to go to the talent system to really explain why that doesn't really happen. So if you go to the talent system at level 15, you'll start off with the most mundane one ever, which is buffing Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm. Already not very significant finishes at all, as I've just explained. So that's kind of flat. Now, Execution Sentence does offer good gameplay. So if I show you this here, if I pick a target, Execution Sentence, let me just get some Holy Power. Execution Sentence actually lands after 6.3 seconds for me right now. And Judgment actually increases damage to your Holy Power spender. So what you'll do is drop an Execution Sentence now, and that allows you to build up more Holy Power before then opening the Judgment window and letting the Execution Sentence drop within that and get the benefits of that. So that's quite a nice little bit of gameplay to manage. Hopefully it won't just be eaten by something like CLC Ret or something along those lines, which we've seen in the past with the Ret Paladin. But it's quite nice to manage if you're not going to use those kind of things, because you're just thinking, okay, I'm building up for a window here. I want to make sure that within that 6 seconds my Execution Sentence lands. So there's my Execution Sentence casted. Then I'll open the Judgment window, and then I'll let that land, and I'll get more and more chunky damage within this sort of Colossus Smash window. That's quite nice. It's okay. I like that. But it should be baseline at this point, because there's not much else going on for the spec. Consecration is just a simply swappable ability. I have keybound my tomes, which you guys will probably be doing if you're raiders. Consecration is just flat out replacing, because Execution Sentence is not baseline. Let me just kill this boss, I suppose. Execution Sentence on. Let me talk you through the gameplay. That's what I can do here. Okay, so Execution Sentence is on. Now I want to pop wings, open the Judgment window, so that Execution Sentence lands. See that 400k there? Now I want to put in as many finishes inside the Judgment window as possible. Wake of Ashes while I'm under power. Get another Execution Sentence going. Open the Judgment window. Spender. Generate, 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 spender, Judgment window's open. Generate, generate, spender, Judgment window's still open. Interrupt that. And that's it. Look, now it's all slowed down to a bit of a halt. Execution Sentence flying. Generate a bit more Holy Power. Judgment go. Windows open. Spend, generate, generate. And this is it. This is the core gameplay. Now, so if you're looking at this saying, oh, that looks alright to me. I actually don't mind that at all. Then, good. Because it isn't going to get much better than that. I'm going to bubble because we're... I remember this one. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been here, but you're supposed to go and kill all these tentacles. But we're going to just do the boss down, cause normal mode, YOLO, YOLO, YOLO. There you go. If you didn't like what you just saw, that is nearly all your gameplay, whether you're single targeting or AoEing. So let me expand on that. So you'll know now whether or not this is a spec for you or whether it's not. So, in that case, you would replace Execution Sentence with Consecration, which is just keep on cooldown. So, there's no gameplay here with 2 of these. You get some gameplay with Execution that's interesting. With Consecration, you do not. With the Fires of Justice, which I have now, you will have not even noticed it happening. So, Fires of Justice reduces the cooldown of Crusader Strike, again, giving that pace. The spec is not slow to play. And there's a 15% chance, really low, to reduce the cost of one of your Holy Powers spenders by 1. So that just means occasionally you'll be doing 2 cost Templar's Verdicts or 2 cost Divine Storms, or a 2 cost Execution Sentence, nothing more. Zeal, if I'd switch over here, let's take some AoE stuff so I can talk about it in a little bit more detail. So now I'm AoE spec'd. Now you'll notice if you were watching my buttons earlier, my key presses will not change. At all. Like, in any way, shape, or form. Except now I've lost the gameplay that I was having with Execution Sentence in some form. And now I'm just basically spending stuff inside the judgment window, and that's about it. This is the entire gameplay at this point. And in no good conscience can I say this is really fun, and I would recommend this to the, you know, nearly over 250,000 people as something that you might want to try compared to something like an Enhancement Shaman or a Feral Druid or an Art of Fury Warrior or something like that. No fucking way. No way can I do that. So what do the talents do that I just did? So I took Zeal. This just replaces Crusader Strike, puts it on a slightly longer charge, and literally just means I'm going to cleave. I'm cleaving now. That's it. It's almost like a Blade Flurry ability, because your gameplay doesn't change at all. But instead of like having to think about Blade Flurry, you don't. You don't think about it at all. It's an easier Blade Flurry in a way, but it's way less damage. Yeah, you can see I'm just doing... I'm cleaving now. You see the numbers? Isn't that impressive? I'm so skilled now. It's terrible. It's really boring. Then we move on to Greater Judgment, which, again, does nothing. Your Judgment now puts the Judgment debuff on more targets. That's it. Your Judgment does nothing else. It has critical strike chance of targets above 50% health. Now, Judgment hits really hard. It's almost as hard as the Templar's Verdict. Again, diminishing the interest in Templar's Verdict. Although I will say, on the 110 I've been playing, which I wish I could get hold of right now, actually, you know, Templar's Verdict is okay. It's better, but not great. Not great by any means. So again, not much interest here. Nothing I can recommend to do anything. And again, you're stuck with exactly the same gameplay that you've had from day one. Again, that will either appeal to you or it won't. Moving down to this is CC. If we look here, I talked about Blade of Justice. Now, Virtue's Blade is very much the epitome of everything I think is wrong with the spec. If you read it, Blade of Justice crit strikes now do 3 times normal damage. So this is basically like, look, the number's bigger. If you have enough critical strike to do lots of big crits, because big crits make good videos, according to some old vanilla PvPers, Linkin Park says hi, that Virtue's Blade will make that number bigger. Okay, man. I mean, that's a talent, guys. That's a talent. It's really quite like, what is going on here exactly? I don't understand what we're trying to achieve here. Oh, we're pressing buttons so we can clear the trash faster. That's cool. Blade of Wrath does, again, replaces the Blades of Justice, so it now does some dot damage. So if you have high crit, you can get a Virtue's Blade and do a big number. If you don't, you can get the dot damage, which is more consistent. Alright. Or you can literally swap again your Blade of Justice. So terrified of adding more spells to your bars, Blizzard, with the Ret Paladin. I really feel like this is designed to be for a young, maybe a worse playing audience. Which now replaces my Blade of Justice with that spike that comes out of the ground, the sword, with this. Which is, again, is just more dot damage that's going over and over and over and over again. That's it. There's nothing happening there. And again, that animation is totally lost in here. Yeah? It's absolutely just gone. I don't know where it is. Can it come back? I don't know. Let's pop some wings. Why not? And this... You see my gameplay is absolutely the same. It's just the guy with the spiders. I remember the spider guy. Alright, so there's the Divine Hammer. Down here doesn't matter, really. The movement speed. Now, oh, shit. I totally shouldn't have been reading that. Down here, the movement speed. So this spec is really, really slow. It's really slow, which is a real pain in the ass to level compared to the other things. Mobility doesn't just mean run speed. I think a lot of people think mobility just means run speed. It absolutely does not mean that. Mobility comes in a lot of different forms. So you might look at a DK and say it's got bad mobility because Wraith walks on a long cooldown. But you then have to bear in mind that you have Death Grip as well. And Death Grip does add to your mobility because obviously you're not traveling to the thing. Can I just run back in? Cool. Awesome. So Divine Steed is great. What a great looking spell this is. But it only lasts 3 seconds on a 45-second cooldown. Ugh. Or you have this Seal of Light business, right? And Seal of Light costs 1 to 5 holy power to double your run speed at maximum stacks. Which sounds great until you realize it's only for 20 seconds, and that's 1 2/3 finishes to get that. It's a very niche ability, honestly. It's very, very niche, and it doesn't make up for just the sheer lack of mobility. I actually miss Tyrellion's Might, and if you've never seen Tyrellion's Might, it's where you can throw your sword into the ground, the Ashbringer. You can throw the Ashbringer into the ground. Oh, it's this guy. Yeah, I remember this. It's a run back. I don't have Divine Steed. Bummer. Tyrellion's Might, you can throw your sword in the ground, like here, or here. I would throw it here for this fight, get knocked back, and then I could charge back to that location, which was very cool. Do I click these? No, I clicked them. Boom! I almost ran into that. I wonder if that would have killed me. That would have been interesting. That would definitely have been interesting. So yeah, the mobility, lackluster comparison to nearly everything else. Again, it's fine. You can absolutely get away with it. The choices are there, but it's comparative to everything else, which is what you need to bear in mind. That's the thing here. We're comparing it to what else is on offer and saying, is it as good? And I'm trying, hopefully now you're getting the picture as to why this all adds up to not being so good. At level 100, we did get Divine Purpose, which does... Oh, is that attacking me? Yeah. Oh, oh, God, what's the Emperor's? Can I bubble this? Apparently. That's funny. Loser. Get bubbled on. Paladin style. Divine Purpose, but it's only 20%. It doesn't add in, it does not allow the spec to take flight. Something I used a lot when describing the Warlords of Draenor Ret Paladin is that it takes flight sometimes. When all the procs went off, it was fucking lunacy. Wasn't there another boss with a spider? Maybe it's a random boss. Oh well, whatever. But it doesn't quite do that. The 20% chance is not going to make that happen. It's just, even with Fires of Justice you just don't notice. Divine Purpose, it's so rare it really happens. A couple of times you will get the back-to-backs, which is nice, but it's never going to take flight like it did in WoD, which again is like, bummer. Crusade is quite nice, but only because it changes Avenging Wrath from being super boring. Where is it? So if I spec out of this... Holy Wrath. So Avenging Wrath just increases damage by 35%. It's hard to get excited about that, right, guys? But Crusade gives you a stacking damage buff and haste buff, which is fun because it means you can line things up to happen at the end of Avenging Wrath and not the kind of thing. Yeah, get these things to land when the damage buff is much, much stronger. I was hoping this dungeon would last longer so I could show you some more concentrated gameplay. I'm really sorry for that because I know the seasoned Ret Paladins are going, you're such a dick. But you get the idea. Unfortunately, I ended up in a short dungeon. But it also does something quite interesting. Is when you get a lot of haste, and I noticed this with 110, is that your judgment window is open permanently. So it does take away that element of gameplay. It almost like gives but takes away with the other hand at the same time. Again, not making it a really wonderful talent in my opinion. Holy Wrath is really interesting. While leveling, I actually used this a few times because it's really silly, especially if you're doing rares on your own. It deals holy damage to up to 4 enemies within 10 yards, equal to 200% of your missing health. It hits like a fucking truck, but it's like an emergency, oh shit, kill everything. I'll put a clip in of me using it on like a lot of mobs and you can get the idea for it. But it's not great in general usage, right? It's so niche. So similar to a lot of the other talents here. So as you can see, none of these talents actually alter your gameplay much. A little bit. There are some good things. Crusade is quite nice. Execution Center is quite nice. But beyond that, that's it. All these talents just don't do much of anything, really. And it stays exactly very static. Now, that is why I rated it the lowest. Because I can't... honestly, in good conscience, just say, yeah, guys, you're going to have a great time on this for months and months to go, because I think you might get really bored of it and then look at what the guys are doing next to you, what the guys are doing in dungeons, and start thinking that grass looks a little bit greener right now. All right, guys, so I hope that clears that up. Hopefully my voice will get better in the last couple of days. I'm sorry if it really irritated you. All right, see you again, guys. Bye-bye.